Thanks for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which is to talk about it on the ride home. I'm Garrett, and of course I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Adrian.
Hey.
And today, we have another show and tell, which is what, Adrian?
This is a episode where I have seen the movie and Garrett hasn't, and he has seen a movie and I haven't. We both wanted each other to watch it for good or bad reasons. But then, so we go ahead and we show and tell each other, and then we'll go ahead and talk about it here with kind of each person, which the movie they presented, they'll kind of present the movie and all that, and the other person will give their initial reactions to seeing it for the first time.
That's absolutely right. And today we have two movies that could not be more different, except having to do with soldiers, really. Is really about it. So all this and more coming up on The Drive Back. All right, back with another show and tell. Adrian, we're going to go ahead and start off with your pick today, since I picked the franchise last week. So Adrian's pick for me, the first one we'll be covering today, is John Carter. Released in 2012, it was directed by Andrew Stanton and stars Taylor Kitsch, Lynn Collins, and Willem Dafoe. Civil War vet John Carter is transported to Mars, where he encounters a wildly diverse planet with 12-foot-tall barbarians and a princess in need of a savior. So, I want to start this off. I thought that I had seen this movie, and I hadn't, which is why I'm glad that you picked this movie. Because for the longest time, I thought I had watched it, and I hadn't. But,
good.
Why did you pick John Carter? What made you choose that one?
So I went and I saw this movie in theaters when it came out, and I remember thinking it was pretty mediocre, but it's kind of one of those big budget Disney movies that I think they've tried to sweep under the rug. It's definitely still watchable and it exists places, but it's definitely one that Disney doesn't talk about really ever. And they never, they definitely canceled whatever sequel universe, whatever they had in the back after this came out. Because I think the original plan was to kind of set up this whole like universe type thing within this series.
You can tell.
Yeah, you can tell they tried to kick off a lot of things. But yeah, it was just, to me, I guess for me, rewatching it for the second time years later, I actually thought this movie wasn't as bad as I remembered it being. It's not good by any means, but I remember it being like really bad. And I feel like it did okay. Like there were some really fun parts of it. The CGI, sometimes really good, other times really bad. The music's sometimes really good, other times really bad. Like, it's just so hit or miss, but when it was good, I had a pretty good time watching it. What did you think?
Yeah, it's actually not bad. It's not good either. Like, it has surprisingly good visual effects for a movie from 2012. Like,
for the most part, yeah, it's great.
The motion capture and the design of the Tharks, I believe.
Tharks, yeah.
Which are the 12-foot-tall green barbarians, is really good. And it rivals stuff today. And I'm like, wow, that's actually really good. But I think the biggest problem is that you can tell that this was a live-action movie directed by someone who had never directed live-action before, in Andrew Stanton, the same director that gave us several Pixar movies. I believe he gave us like Finding Nemo and stuff like that. So
didn't know that.
Yeah, so definitely a weird choice to direct John Carter. But let's go ahead and jump right into our thoughts. Before we go any further, John Carter is, of course, available to stream on Disney+, as much as they try to hide it. It's theirs.
To search it, did you also have to type in, like, John C-A-R-T? Like, it did not want to show me the movie. I had to almost type in the whole title.
I went to play and it was like, "Are you sure you would like to watch this?" And
yeah,
I was like,
it kicked me over to Netflix. It straight up took me off the website.
It took me to Paramount Plus. It was weird. But we're gonna go ahead and talk about spoilers for the movie. So go ahead and if you do want to watch it, make sure you check it out on Disney Plus. But let's go ahead.
Which I'd recommend, by the way. I would recommend if you are thinking about watching it. It's not as bad as I remember it being. It's definitely a watchable film.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really not bad. So, yeah. That's the surprising part. But let's go ahead and dive right into this. Again, I thought I had seen it, and I very clearly hadn't. About
How soon? Yeah, did you figure that out?
I think I had seen some of the stuff in the beginning regarding like the Tharks and when he first arrives. I remember that, but then everything else faded away. And
you probably fell asleep.
Probably. And maybe I had seen it and just forgotten everything. I don't know. This movie felt brand new to me, so
that's good.
But like a couple things I do want to point out is, first off, I'm not familiar with the books. I don't know if you've read them.
Nope.
But the world, at least as far as the movie goes, feels pretty well realized. Like there's a lot of effort there in making these countries and groups feel distinct. Except I will say that I think it's Zodanga and Helium don't really look all that different, except one of them wears red and one of them wears blue.
I had a really just watching it again. I was like, but those ships look the same. Like they're using the same technology. Yeah, you're right. One just wore different colors.
Yeah, just absolutely. It's kind of weird, but I think this movie really gets originality points when it deals with like the Tharks and their society, which is clearly, I think, what they wanted to either set up for a sequel or, push in this movie. And it does work. Again, the visual effects in this movie, for the most part, are pretty good. If there was anywhere that kind of suffered, I don't remember where. Do you, is anything that stuck out to you?
There was just some of the fast-moving parts that you could kind of tell just looked or actually, I do remember one specific moment when they land on top of the big plateau for the first time. They travel down the Is, the river.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And when they're walking, you can tell that they're not there. Like, the shadows don't line up. They're on a green screen. And it's like the only time I was really like, oh, so that's just not real at all. Like, they didn't even make the ground. But for the most part, there was one scene where he's flying, John Carter, for the first time, and he crashes into the sand. And if you had shown that scene to me, I would have thought that was out of like the new Star Wars. It looked so good that I was like, why is this one scene in like 8K and the rest of the movie's in HD? There were certain scenes that just looked really, really good, and then the rest of it was okay. But all of it was pretty much passable. I mean, none of it really took me out of the movie.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised to see how much they could do with just this dry rock environment.
Yeah.
Like, the Tharks area was definitely more unique than Helium, obviously, because they're different. Like one's more technology driven. But like, even like the different places, like the River Is, compared to just like the desert wastes, like it all seemed different but the same, which I think is very good world building despite where they are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think just the power dynamics that they established, the world building itself, I thought, like the whole thing with the wedding and kind of, they did a really good job of something I talk about a lot on this, but that they showed instead of told for a lot of it. And I think it definitely comes across as an engaging film. I think everything you're looking at, they just show you how it works. And they don't sit there, they don't have someone with exposition for the most part. They don't have someone sitting there going like, and then this will happen, and this is what's happening now. And it's like they just showed it to you. There were a couple of parts, especially with the Therns, the guy, like he definitely was an exposition tool for a lot of the movie to just like explain what was happening, but for the most part they showed, and I really appreciate it for that.
Which makes like that kind of makes sense, like in kind of storytelling.
Definitely.
That godlike character, that powerful character, is the one that you would expect to deliver that exposition as much as it does.
Yes, no, I think it definitely fit.
Yeah, it works for the movie, but there is one thing that kind of does irk me about this movie. And it does, and it has nothing to do with the movie itself, but it still has a factor in it. This falls into the same problem that I experienced with the Snyder Cut, and the same problem that I recently experienced with the Snake Eyes G.I. Joe movie, is that you can tell that this is supposed to be the first part, or the setup for something that's coming, and you're not getting that next thing.
Yeah.
It makes the movie suffer for me. And not a whole lot, but like enough that I dock a couple of points because I just like it just feels like it's building up to something that I know it's not coming.
Yeah, and it's not like with the Snyder Cut, I definitely defended that because Zack Snyder was right trying to pitch that he should be allowed to make the rest of his movies. That was still a possibility when he made that. Yeah. John Carter's been out for what now, like 10 years? We're not getting a second one. And if we do, it's going to be a whole reboot of the movie.
You think we're going to get a 10th anniversary 4K re-release next year?
Dude, honestly though, after watching it, I would probably buy that. I feel like that is such a funny movie to own in such a format.
It's such a crazy movie to be like, yeah, I went out and bought John Carter on 4K today.
Like honestly, I want like the special box like on display in my DVD collection, but it's just John Carter in 4K, and people are like, "Why is that in a bulletproof case?"
You know what?
And it's like, don't even look at it.
You know what'd be even better? Would be if it came like just regular 4K Blu-ray, but it came with a little stuffed animal of one of the Thark babies.
That'd be cool.
Adorable, because those things are cute.
Yeah, they could. I would be if they could come out with a collector's edition of this movie. I would certainly be interested. That's for sure.
It's like one of those
not because it's great. It's just so funny.
It's one of the movies that I would want to see, not a live-action remake, but an animated remake. And I think that like if you put this, because Andrew Stanton directed it, and you can tell he has reverence for the property.
Mm-hmm.
Give it back to him and Pixar, and have them build a franchise. I think that would be very cool. But
I think I could definitely see like a series on Disney Plus around this animated. Totally, it's got the setup, the structure, the world building. I mean, you could definitely take this further. Rewatching it, I'm engaged. I want more John Carter right now. Also, Junie from Spy Kids making an appearance in Adult World for some reason.
Being anything but Butterfingers, I can tell you that.
Well, he still didn't know how to enter the door at the end. He's not very...
He's not the brightest kid.
Yeah.
But one other thing I wanted to address, and actually kind of questions, because I was watching this movie, and I had totally forgotten about this. Are the actors, the actors that play characters from Helium and Zodanga,
okay,
are they in brownface?
Oh, I don't know.
Does that...
It didn't look like it.
It looked like they
I can see what you're saying.
Tan, like, but I've seen pictures of Lynn Collins. I've seen pictures of Kieran Hines. They're not that tan in real life.
But I don't think it was brown face. I would assume it was just a lot of bronzer. Like they just tanning oil a lot or tanning color on their whole body.
Yeah, which I guess now because of 2021, I kind of question be like, why don't you just hire actors of, that like
skin
tone range instead of just throwing on bronzer, throwing them into the skin tan booth?
I think that's a tough. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough situation.
I'm not taking points away from the movie because of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to know whether you thought it was brownface or not, or if it was just
think so.
Throwing tan on.
Yeah, it didn't register like that to me, but I could see what you're saying.
I mean, also it is Mars. It's a lot of sun. Maybe these people are just naturally that color, but it just feels weird throwing actors with a lighter skin tone and then just being like, boom, there's your tanning oil.
I can see that. Yeah, I see both sides for sure on that one.
Yeah.
I did have kind of a very big spoiler at the very end when Ned is reading the letter, and it's been 2 hours of him reading the letter, recounting John Carter's whole experience, and then at the end he goes, "As you're reading this letter, they're coming for my body." It's like, put that at the beginning, my guy. Like, you need him to go save you now, not 2 hours from now.
Well, I think if it was any indication, it looks like the person was waiting outside until someone went to the tomb.
Yes. Oh, completely agreed.
It's not like an emergency situation, but you never know.
But also, great little plot twist there at the end. Did it catch you by surprise?
It did, but honestly, I was expecting the trope of him bringing... I can't remember the name of the princess.
Deja.
That's right. Him bringing Deja to Earth. And being like, here's my planet. Maybe that happens in a sequel of the books or something, but, I was expecting it in this, and I was glad that I didn't get it.
You know what else I really wanted out of the end, though? I want to know what the guy brought out of the cave that wasn't the medallion. That he was like, I got it. And then John Carter like sweeps it up, like takes it and runs away. What was that?
I think the way that I read it is that he must have paid that guy to be like, it's a fake one.
So like, hey, just come out of the cave and like screaming and say you found it. I'll give you $1,000 or whatever.
So it gets the Thurn to follow him, so then he can kill the Thurn and take the real one. Maybe that's how I read it.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. That definitely. Well, I'm sad now. I wish there was something special.
But let's go ahead. Let's talk about the cast before we wrap this up.
Sure.
So Taylor Kitsch as a lead man. We've seen him in side roles. He's been in quite a few movies. I think he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What did you think about him as a lead?
I thought it was good. I think he definitely fit this character. The entire time I kept like when they flashed back to him on Virginia, I kept getting Johnny Depp vibes when he was like wearing the hat and the suit and stuff. But I see why he's normally a side character. I think he definitely has enough depth to like add to a performance, but him carrying on his own is a little rough.
He falls a little flat for me.
Just a tiny bit, yeah.
I think, and I don't think it's because of him. I think it's because how the character's written.
Sure.
I feel like the romance between him and Deja is a little quick to happen.
I think it doesn't really make any sense either. Like when they're in the room and she's like, when you first caught me, I knew you. You're like, what did you know? Like, I don't know. It just kind of felt weird, yeah.
Your outfit lifted up and I saw everything and I was like, I like what I see. So it's pretty quick and forced, but I think the way it's written, because he's always just like, I won't fight for you. I'll only, I just want my cave of gold. Like, that's kind of flat and boring. And I don't blame Taylor Kitsch for that. I think that was mostly the writing. But
I also think that it would have been, I think we would have been talking about how negative it was if he just immediately started helping her. I actually kind of favored that he pushed back so much. I think she asked him like 8 times to help, and he just stuck with it. He's like, no, I have no place here. I want to leave. And every time I expected him to go like, I'll do this just this once. And he never did. I mean, for a long time, he was like, no, I don't believe in that.
To be fair, he only really decided to stay once he had the power to leave.
Yeah.
Which I think that's actually pretty decent as well.
I think it's pretty powerful, and I think that's the choice, right? Once you're faced with that, what do you do? Yeah, it was good.
It's giving me insight into my own storytelling, because I have a character going through the same thing in the book that I'm writing, where he's brought to a new world that he has no idea what to do. And so this kind of gives me some good insight into looking like what would make a person want to stay, what would make someone want to do something. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Lynn Collins is the princess. I thought she was pretty decent.
Yeah, she did okay.
She could hold her own, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Really, the only other standout for me is Willem Dafoe as the Thark barbarian leader.
Yeah.
I thought he was good. Everyone else just is there.
Who played Sab?
Thon.
Who played him?
Dominic Monaghan.
He's relatively famous.
He's in a lot. I'm not going to say he's famous. He's been in a lot of movies.
He's like a big support character kind of guy.
Yeah, he usually plays a villain or like someone adjunct to the villain.
I thought his performance was probably the weakest.
Yeah, I could see that.
I just feel like it just didn't like. He had zero depth as a villain because to me, and yes, to the credit of the movie, this is the point, but he was just a pawn. Like, he had no depth. And even they acknowledge it. They say, we just need, like, dumb barbarians to do our bidding for us. And that's, I guess, you know what? Now that I'm talking about it, maybe he did great. He definitely felt like a very flat barbarian. Like, that's exactly how it came across.
The personality-less barbarian being used for the reasons that the Therns needed him for.
Yeah, so maybe he was the best actor in the movie.
I wouldn't go that far. But let's go ahead and anything else you want to talk about with John Carter?
No, I do think, or I guess last thing, I think they did a great job too of how odd it would be to suddenly have to get used to Mars. Like the whole jumping thing, when he's first trying to learn, they spend like a solid 2 minutes showing you how difficult it is to figure out and adjust to Mars gravity. And kind of with everything, like he never gets good at flying. Like he never gets good at any of the things that Mars has to offer because he's only been there for a short time. And I feel like a lot of movies would have just taken that and been like, no, plot device, he can now fly any vehicle in the world, and that's it. And he does great. So I feel like they did a good job of definitely like keeping him a fish out of water for 90% of the movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Which I think they probably would have continued on going into the various series or various movies and stuff that would have come out.
What could have been.
But let's go ahead and get some final thoughts and a score for John Carter. I will go first since you chose me to watch this movie. I think John Carter is a surprisingly fun and kind of a unique and original movie that Disney tried to make a franchise out of. While it does stumble in some of its pacing and it does have issues with some flat performances, the visual effects still hold up, and it was... I'm not going to lie. It was fun to watch. But again, not perfect, so I ended up giving it a 70.
Well, I feel like I have to revisit my score.
Oh.
Huh. Because I thought I feel like I like it more than you did. And now I feel like... okay, yeah, I mean, I think this movie was super fun. That threw me off. I think it's really fun. I wish there was more. I get why it was kind of canned after this movie, and I can definitely see it being a product of its time and just not being successful with stuff that was coming out around that time. Like, people just weren't kind of interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a victim of a lot of different circumstances, but I wish there was more. If it comes out, I will absolutely get the collector's edition. Disney, if you're listening, don't be mad that Scarlett Johansson is suing you. Make the John Carter 4K collector's edition. That's all we need. But because of that, I gave this movie a 68. I think it is absolutely super fun to watch, but it is nowhere near a good movie. It's just like wild. It's just an absolutely crazy movie to watch, and it's got some good parts, some bad parts, but just a fun movie.
Yeah, I think it earns those extra 2 points for me over yours just because of how surprising. I was like, hey, wait a minute, this is actually fun. Like,
because all you hear about is everyone talk about how bad this movie is.
Well, like everyone, I don't hear people talk about how bad it is. If they do talk about how bad it is, it's because they haven't seen it. I feel like most people were like, it was actually decent. I just don't know why it didn't perform well.
Oh, do you think this is just like a House of Cards movie film circle? People just say it's bad because they haven't seen it, but it's not real?
It's got to be. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's fun. I think it could have started off something great. I was hungry for more, kind of like you were. So
yeah.
But we're going to go ahead and move on from the light side of the forgotten vaults of Disney to some pretty dark and depressing stuff. My choice for Adrian to watch was Apocalypse Now. Released in 1979, it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola and stars Martin Sheen, Marlon Brando, and Robert Duvall. A U.S. Army officer serving in Vietnam is tasked with assassinating a renegade Special Forces colonel who sees himself as a god. It won 2 Oscars for Best Sound and Best Cinematography, and was nominated for 6 more, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Robert Duvall, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, and Best Editing. It's worth it to note that we also watched the original theatrical version of the film and not the Redux or Final Cut, because that's how most people saw it when it came out. We wanted to preserve that. I chose this movie because it's been a while since we've watched a movie on the show where it is verified to be like one of the better movies of all time, and it's one of the ones that you had said you had never seen. And it's one of the ones that's always discussed in film circles when it comes to great film. But I'm very, very curious to see what you thought of Apocalypse Now for the first time watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good movie. I think I had this lodged in my brain as like a Saving Private Ryan type film.
Oh yeah.
Just because of like the similarities in visuals in like the at least what they show in the trailers and stuff like that. So I had it lodged completely differently. I thought the movie was much darker than I anticipated, in a good way, but just and also had a lot of kind of the not like real mystical qualities, but like fantastical elements of the godlike persona that this man was putting on.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was it added a ton. I think I thought this was gonna be more of like a period piece. Film. Yeah, and like a period piece on the war. And while it was, it becomes a lot more than that as you get about halfway through. You start to realize that you are kind of in for a much deeper story than what it initially appears as.
Yes. Yeah, this movie is it's an adaptation of the classic novella Hearts of Darkness.
Yes.
Which is that one's about a tripping into the African Congo with a man pursuing I believe a poacher or an elephant ivory trader under the same name, Kurtz. And Francis Ford Coppola adapted it to the Vietnam War, which I actually think, based on just hearing the story of the book, which I have not read, Apocalypse Now nails the kind of bleak tone better than the book.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched this movie since high school, so probably like 2011. So it's probably been about 10 years since I've seen it, even though I own all 3 versions of the film. And this movie's a masterpiece. It's really not, and I'll spoil my score. It's not a 100 because I do feel like it does tend to drag a little bit in some places, and it could have been trimmed down. But the problem is, I don't know where you could have trimmed it. That's I guess that's more my issue. Is that like I don't know where you could take stuff out because everything shows the downfall.
Yeah, well, I'd argue that everything shows. There are a lot of scenes that just hang. And that is for the movie's sake. They're trying to show you, right, the aftermath of a scene or kind of what's happening. But there are scenes that hang for like 2 minutes at a time. Like you just look at a statue with like something fading in and out for a long time. And again, I don't think that takes away, but I think, and I agree that it could have been shorter, but it'd be tough to find where, because even those like 2 or 3 times that happens, that's not going to cut the movie by any considerable amount.
Exactly. Yeah. But before we dive into any kind of spoilers, it's worth it to mention this movie is only available to rent, I believe. You do have to rent it if you want to watch it. It's not on a streaming platform. I am fortunate enough to own it, so that's how I was able to watch it. But let's go ahead and talk some spoilers for Apocalypse Now. So, what are some of the strong points with this movie, Adrian? I feel like this is kind of hard to discuss just because it's so considered to be an amazing film. But what are some of the strong points you'd say?
I thought the cinematography was really good. You could tell that they had just kind of mastered that shot-in-shot style of overlaying 2 different shots at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of that, but they use it in a way that doesn't feel cheesy. It almost helps to let you kind of feel the disassociation that the main character is feeling. Like they show you 2 scenes at once, and it kind of feels whimsical and like, whoa, like what's happening? And they use it really well. So I thought that was really good. I think the acting was really good. That's just all the way around. I think it's pretty incredibly acted. And then
this is a masterclass in acting, especially from Martin Sheen and Marlon Brando. They are really key here, which is funny because I'll go over kind of the behind the scenes stories, which I think will increase your appreciation for this film a little bit later. But Marlon Brando was apparently hard to work with on this movie.
Was he a method actor?
Not really. I'll explain later. But
yeah, so the acting all the way around was good. I think the story was delivered so well. I mean, it's been, 40 years? 30 years since this came out? 32 or something like that?
A little over 40 years.
42. And I, not knowing what this movie was about, I feel like it took me on a journey. just kind of jumping in without knowing anything, and then watching the plot unfold as it's happening. I think that the story was really great and unexpected, and I just think it's like you said, it's hard to talk about because it's just all great. I mean, there's not really like many negatives to this, except did we drop the spoiler warning?
Yes.
At the end, I did not like that they actually showed a water buffalo being murdered.
I don't know if it's a real water buffalo.
It is. I looked it up.
Oh, it is a real water buffalo.
It was part of the payment to the tribe for letting them film there. That's really a water buffalo slaughtered on camera.
Then it must... Well, it must have been before any kind of, like, animal rights organizations were in Hollywood. But B, that is a cultural norm there.
Oh, totally. No, completely understand.
That does make sense that it would be in the movie. It's not easy to watch, but... That's
what I'm saying. I didn't... And I totally get it. Because it was also about... He was slashing down Kurtz at the time, so it was like symbolic of what was happening. But when it was happening, I went, that's like a really detailed cow prop. And then I was watching it happen, and I was like, that's like really detailed. And then I looked it up afterwards, and I was like, oh no! But I guess they gave him a bunch of different animals to eat while filming as payment. Like, I think it was like 20 chickens and like 2 water buffalo and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely fit the tone of the movie. It is shocking, but I think it's meant to be. So I think it nails what it was trying to do. It is just a jarring scene.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that you point that out as the most jarring scene, because this movie has a lot of jarring scenes in them. And I would hazard a guess to say that, for me it was this way, I don't know if it was for you, it kind of goes from like bad to worse as the movie goes on, like what they go through. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know, you see like the very famous Flight of the Valkyrie scene where the helicopters are flying and they attack a village, which was like, it was like shooting an actual war zone when they were filming it, which was really interesting. And you see a lot of bad stuff happens there, but you know, it ends kind of light. They napalm the tree line. That gives that, you know, that incredibly famous, you know, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, you know. And then they go surfing while there's all this stuff going on. And then, you know, you get to like the USO show where, you know, the Playboy models come out, and then all the soldiers rush the stage because they really want to be with them, and then they get out of there. And then it just keeps going. People die. You have the awesome nighttime bridge sequence that is literally just hell, because these soldiers have no commanding officer. They're just shooting at the other side of the thing, and they keep telling you, like, they keep rebuilding the bridge just so that they can say they're holding it, is like just incredible.
Yeah.
And then you finally get to the end with Colonel Kurtz and the encampment, and it's just, you know, you've kind of plunged the depths at that point.
I wonder if there's some sort of way to overlay Dante's Inferno and the layers.
I was actually going to bring that up because I kind of
wonder if you, like, it starts out, and I'm not saying it's like gluttony and this and this and this, but it's like the sins of war is more what I would relate it to, like lust, right? At the show, everybody rushes to say, like, I wonder, because the closer you get to the,
like, pride with the surfing, lust with the show, violence with the bridge, and then I guess I don't know what you would call
insanity. I feel like there's probably more stages that are just more. Some of them are more subtle, but I would argue that you could line a lot of it up with certain things, because the closer you get, just like the lower you go in Dante's Inferno, the closer he gets to Kurtz, the crazier reality gets. And the stuff that he's seeing, and it's not that it's reality is like fake or anything, it's just the reality of war gets more and more corrupt and screwed up as he gets closer to Kurtz.
Which is funny, because I wholeheartedly believe that there is nothing, like, except for the Flight of the Valkyrie sequence, there is no realistic depiction here. And it's not supposed to be. This is war. Like, if the Vietnam War was actually like this, well, a lot of those soldiers would be in prison. For things that happened, and I'm sure a lot of them did. But, like, it gets more depraved and more insane as it goes, and it's more of an apocalypse film, as the title suggests, than it is a military war film. But
Yeah,
it's
I
also
think
more of a personal movie too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more of a personal movie, but it wraps you in with. I would say the first act is very realistic feeling for war. Like that whole beginning, like it really wraps you in with like, wow, this is all pretty real. Like this feels good. And then it very slowly starts to put in things that you don't, almost like imperceptibly, but that are like, oh, like that might not be realistic until you're watching a movie that felt really real and still feels real and gritty, but nothing on screen is historically accurate anymore. But it's definitely a masterclass in a lot of things, and that's one of them is the storytelling.
Yeah, and it is absolutely incredible. And I can't, we're just going to keep praising this movie. So I feel like should share some of the behind the scenes facts. This movie was hell to shoot. There was a lot of disease outbreaks during filming because they took a bunch of stuff and went to the Philippines and started filming. There were, I think Francis Ford Coppola 2 or 3 times threatened to commit suicide because of the effect the movie was having on him. A lot of the military equipment was currently, at the time, being used by the Filipino military because they were fighting an actual civil war. And so there would be sequences where they didn't have access to their military equipment to use for the film, which is crazy.
Wow.
They ended up shooting 230 hours of footage for this movie.
That's pretty cool.
Which just
and then they just made
versions.
But then they just basically made a movie out of that. Basically, they made a movie out of the entire trip.
I could be wrong, but I believe what I saw was it was 2 years in the editing room to make the movie into what it is, and that's absolutely incredible. Which it shows in its best editing Oscar nomination. But there's an incredible documentary. I believe it's called it's called Hearts of Darkness. The book is called Heart of Darkness.
Yes.
The documentary is called Hearts of Darkness: A Filmmaker's Apocalypse. It's considered as one of the best documentaries of all time because it shows just what they went through to make the movie, and it is absolutely
I'll
insane.
check that out. Yeah, I want to see that.
I think it's separate. You can actually get it on YouTube, or you can probably
it's just available. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am definitely going to be watching that this week. Because I love the behind the scenes stuff with movies like this.
Oh, it's a fantastic movie. Whenever movies are like this, I mean, I would love to know more, especially now that I know how much went into filming and all that. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it.
So let's go ahead and wrap up this show and tell. Adrian, what are your final thoughts for Apocalypse Now and your score?
My final thoughts are: it is not Saving Private Ryan. Which was very mind-blowing. It is a period piece, but it's also very fantastical in all the best ways. It is certainly a master class in pretty much anything involved with film, whether that's like acting, editing, script writing, directing, like all that stuff. This is definitely something to look at and go, oh, that's fantastic. That's amazing. And because of that, I gave it a 98. I think this movie is, almost perfect. The negatives aren't really negatives. I struggled to give it 100 because I think it was a little long, and there were parts where I did find myself like, okay, we're still on the river. Like it's been 10 minutes and we're still just floating down the river. In silence, or like a monologue, which it's all important, but it does drag a little bit at times.
I fully agree. I think that Apocalypse Now is an unrivaled Vietnam era masterpiece. I hesitate to call it a war film. It's much more of a personal story, more so than anything else. It's from the tone of the story to the acting of the characters. It cements its legacy as one of the best war films because it shows the impact of war on the psyche, which is just big. It does drag in a couple places. It could have been trimmed for time, maybe, but it remains incredible. And funny enough, I also gave it a 98.
Really?
So we line up.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to see the other versions.
I own them, so I'll probably have to check them out.
Yeah, I definitely. Well, I think you can rent all 3 different versions.
You should be able to, yeah.
I don't know which one is considered the best. Do you?
I I don't, and I don't want to have to spend time looking it up while we're on the show here. But I know the Redux is held in somewhat of a high regard. I know theatrical versions are always viewed as superior for the most part, unless you're Blade Runner. But I mean, I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Fair enough. I'll have to watch all three then.
But that's going to bring us to an end on this episode. Adrian, for the love of all that is just, out there for the sake of film, if they don't know where to find us online, where can they find us?
Well, if you're watching us, you found us. We are at the Drive Back Podcast pretty much anywhere on the internet. So if you want to go ahead and look us up on YouTube and you're looking at our beautiful faces right now, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell. We do post exclusive content here on YouTube, so if you do follow us, you will get special reviews of movies that don't necessarily deserve maybe like a full podcast episode, but they definitely deserve to be talked about. Maybe something quick. We do post here quite often. And then if you follow us on the Drive Back Podcast on any other podcast listening platform, you can find us there. We do full episodes every Monday, and we always post on Instagram as well to remind you that those are there, and you can comment there and let us know if you liked the episode, if you didn't, if you want us to watch a certain movie or you don't want us to watch a certain movie. That's the place to let us know. There is over on Instagram at, again, the Drive Back Podcast.
Absolutely. And also, by the time this video goes up, you will see that there have been movie reviews for the 3 releases this weekend. Jungle Cruise, Stillwater, and The Green Knight. I'll be doing reviews for those on my blog, which you can find linked right down here, which I'll be doing pretty much movie reviews every weekend now. So please go ahead and check out that blog whenever there's an update. But other than that, Adrian, thank you for watching Apocalypse Now, and thank you for all of you for listening and watching and supporting us. We love you so much, and we'll see you next time on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.